Live from the 8 News Now studios in Las Vegas, the leading candidates for Las Vegas mayor square off. Shelley Berkeley, Victoria Seaman, and Cedric Creer. This is your local election headquarters, the Las Vegas mayoral debate.
Good evening, and thanks for joining us tonight for our Las Vegas mayor primary debate. We are in the KLAS studios. I am news anchor Denise Valdez, and joining us tonight is Politics Now host John Langler and reporter Joshua Peguero.
Now, all three candidates on stage here in the studio with us have met our eligibility requirements. Former Nevada Congresswoman Shelley Berkeley, Las Vegas City Councilwoman Victoria Seaman, and Las Vegas City Councilman Cedric Creer. Here are the qualifications they met. They are actively campaigning candidates. They each reached at least 5% in a poll and have raised at least $25,000. Here are the rules. Each candidate gets 60 seconds to answer a question. They have 30 seconds if there's a follow-up or a rebuttal, and if clarification is needed, there are an additional 15 seconds. And we'll remind you at home, and of course the candidates here in the studio, of those times throughout the debate. A bell will ring when the time is up. So when you hear that bell, that's a sign that time has expired. So let's get started, and thank you again to the candidates for being here in studio with us this evening. Our polling with Emerson College has repeatedly shown one of the most important issues for voters is affordable housing. In March, the National Association of Home Builders reported 85% of homes sold here are unaffordable. We'll start with Mrs. Berkeley. You have 1 minute to respond. What should Las Vegas do to help all citizens afford a place to live?
I think this is a very important issue. The first home that my parents ever purchased was in Las Vegas. It was $33,000. Wasn't the Taj Mahal, but it gave us roots in the community. We belonged here. We owned property. And I believe that people that are coming to Las Vegas now and are in Las Vegas want the same things that my family wanted. And so I think we need to do everything we can to provide affordable housing for the people that call Las Vegas home. Certain things that need to be done. We should be building up. We should be working with, and I think I can do this, with the governor and the congressional delegation to bring BLM land, to have it ceded to the city so that we can continue to develop. I also think we should look into tiny homes and prefabricated homes and give people options in order to be able to live and live comfortably in Southern Nevada and the city of Las Vegas.
Mrs. Berkeley, thank you. Mrs. Seaman, also 1 minute to respond. What should Las Vegas do to help all citizens afford a place to live?
Well, I want to continue what we're doing. We have in our economic development department, we have incentives that we offer not only to builders and developers, but anyone who wants to come in and do affordable housing. We get federal, state, grants that come in, and we also have a redevelopment agency for those areas to help, and that compounds the incentives. We're also giving builders permits. We're giving reduced rates on permitting, and so I think that we need to continue that. And we have been, as a city delegation, to Washington to make sure that we're working with our federal delegation in order to get land back. And I will, too, continue working with Governor Lombardo to make sure that we get land back from the federal government.
Mrs. Seaman, thank you. Mr. Creer, 1 minute to answer as well. What should Las Vegas do moving forward to help all citizens afford a place to live?
Well, first, thank you for having us here. It's very important that we find out who is the most qualified mayor to lead the charge. I can tell you what I've been doing in the past 6 years as councilman. You know, we just hosted the acting secretary for HUD here, Secretary Todman. We talked about how can we work better to create opportunities for more workforce and affordable housing. Working with the Southern Nevada Regional Housing Authority, we're taking a property that has been 50, 60 years old, affordable. We're repurposing it. Marble Manor, for instance. We're going to qualify for a choice neighborhood grant with HUD. It's about a $50 million grant. We're going to triple the capacity of Marble Manor. We're going to modernize it. We're going to make it mixed income as well as affordable. We work with Share West Side. We're building 104 units of workforce housing, 10,000 square foot of retail space on the bottom, a Vegas test kitchen. You know, we have a lot of property that we have. We are incentivizing builders and design builds to ensure that we can get low rates, and so that builders can keep that at affordable AMI, average monthly income.
Mr. Creer, thank you. Denise.
Well, it seems like no matter where you travel through the valley these days, you are bound to see homelessness. In fact, the most recent 2023 Clark County homeless census counted more than 6,500 people who need a home. All of the resources for those people are in the Corridor of Hope. Now, in her most recent State of the City speech this year, Mayor Goodman said it was time to spread out those services.
A master plan that could be replicated, we hope, in other parts of Nevada, so that one area does not take over all unhoused people, or you will end up like Skid Row in LA.
So, Victoria Seaman, you can answer first. Again, as a reminder, you do have 1 minute. Do we need to have services in other parts of the city? And if so, where would they go?
Well, absolutely we do. As you know, we did the Corridor of Hope to replicate the Haven for Hope in San Antonio. And that was a great thing. However, it is now become the place for all municipalities. So I recently went to San Antonio with the governor's representatives. That is now, he has put forth $100 million state money with private industry, another $100 million, to replicate the Haven for Hope, which we did. We did it on 2 acres. It's actually 14 acres. And that's what we needed. We needed the state to step in, because we need a place where you can do the wraparound services like we do at the Corridor of Hope, and make sure that we try to get people off the street, but we can't just put them into hotel rooms. What we need to do is make sure we have those wraparound services. And I am really excited about what the governor is doing, because we've been doing it at the city now since 2017.
So you mentioned that. 15 seconds here to clarify. Where would that be, though?
So they're still deciding where it's going to be. But the great thing about it is it's going to be close to 14 acres, which is going to be enough room to do all the wraparound services, transitional housing. So I am not quite sure where it's going to be, but we're excited about it.
All right, thank you for that. Mr. Creer, as a reminder, you have 1 minute to answer. Do we need services for the homeless in other parts of the city, and if so, where would they go?
Well, no one has done more to mitigate homelessness than me. The mayor is talking about not putting all services in one area. That's in my ward, in Ward 5. I've traveled around the country looking at this issue. We brought best practices back with our courtyard, with our recuperative care center. We've seen in other cities that they have what's called navigational centers that are located throughout the valley, because you would be remiss if you didn't think that there's homelessness throughout the entire valley. You have youth that are sleeping on rooftops. You have people who are in the flood covers. So we need to have access to services to provide them. And so yes, we're working with the county to build a mental health facility at the old Ross and Neal facility. That's what that $100 million and the $100 million match is going to go for, right by CSN, right on Jones and Charleston area. There's going to be a mental health hospital there. We've gone around the country looking at what's called crisis stabilization units, temporary mental health facilities that we have. We're going to build one in the city, as well as one in the county, as well as one at that Ross and Neal facility. So yes, we are working towards that, and it's important that we provide services throughout the entire valley.
Mrs. Berkeley, 1
Yes.
minute for you as well to answer. Do we need services for the homeless in other parts of the city, and where would you propose?
Homelessness is not unique to Las Vegas, but it's our problem. It's a federal issue. 20% of the homeless are veterans. It's a state issue, a county issue, and a municipal issue. We need to be working together in order to help get people off the street. Where I would like to see a full-service wraparound campus located not in downtown Las Vegas, but where they provide mental health therapy. It's a very serious issue. Opioid and alcohol addiction services. Give people job training so they can sustain themselves with a job, and then find a job for them by working with the resort corridor. I think it is very important. Then you do the transitional housing that hopefully will turn into permanent housing, and ensure that we get people off the street. We have wonderful facilities in downtown, but they're designed to sustain homeless people, not work to get them off the street.
So again, not downtown, but then where would you look at?
I don't think anybody could give you that answer. There are a number of locations. Victoria is correct. It needs a considerable amount of acreage, and I think it would be very helpful to have an all-inclusive campus somewhere in the Las Vegas Valley that all of the municipality, city, and county are working on and working together to remediate this very serious problem.
All right, so let's do a quick follow-up here. The city camping ban, in broad strokes, it can cite or arrest someone if they're sleeping on the streets, if there is indeed room at a shelter. Ms. Seaman, as a reminder, you've got 30 seconds for this follow-up question. You voted in favor of the camping ban. You like it. Do you think it's effective?
I do, because we started with one more team when I got elected. We now have 5 more teams. Those are the teams that go out when people call about encampments within city limits and go out and offer those people services, offer that to bring them to the corridor. So yes, I do think it's been effective, and that was the purpose of this. First of all, to save businesses where people were counting out because they were going out of business, but twofold, it was to get these people help, because the biggest problem is mental health and addiction, and we know that.
Mr. Creer, again, 30 seconds here for the follow-up. The camping ban, you also voted in favor of it. Do you think it's working?
Yeah, I do think it's working. Look, I have been working, like I said, hand in hand since the first day I got in office on April 18th of 2018 to help mitigate homelessness. We have 5 more teams. I've been working directly with them to ensure that people have services. The camping ban is another resource that is used by our more teams, our conditions team, and also Metro. And I think it's a humanitarian way to get people to use services. They say you have to reach a homeless person 7 to 8 times before they'd be willing to take services. So it's another tool that we have to go out and offer services to our homeless population.
So, Mrs. Berkeley, 30 seconds here. Would you want to keep the camping ban if you were elected as mayor?
I would keep the camping ban. I think my 2 opponents in that vote, I think, did the appropriate thing. But again, it's a Band-Aid. It's not getting people off the street permanently, and that's what we need to do. It's a humanitarian issue. It's an issue for the community, not having homeless people sleeping on your front lawn. And it's also a business issue. Mom and pop businesses that put their life savings into their business, to have homeless people camping out at their front door is bad for their business.
All right, a lot to talk about tonight. Let's move on to our next question with Joshua.
All right, this next question is about the Animal Foundation. After a recent audit revealed major financial problems, the city joined with North Las Vegas and Clark County to bail the shelter out. The current contract expires in 2024. Mr. Creer, 1 minute for your answer. Do you have faith in that operation moving forward, and what changes are needed?
I do. You know, the good thing is that there were issues. They didn't raise the white flag soon enough, and we did come in and help them. It's a partnership with the county as well in the city of Las Vegas. We did come in and help them financially to get them moving forward. I think they'll do well. You know, I did something to pass a chipping ban for our pets to ensure that we don't keep that burden on the foundation. That's going to allow these pets to get back into their homes where we know that it is more safely for them, and that's where they need to be. And so we're working with them to move things forward. I think it's a positive step that we've taken to move the foundation forward.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Berkeley. 1 minute for you as well. Do you have faith in that operation moving forward, and what changes are needed?
I believe that it needs to be adequately funded. According to the study that was made, they said it was transparent, that people that were working at the shelter were very cooperative, but there are very many challenges. Number 1 is financial, and as long as the city and North Las Vegas and the county are helping to fund the Animal Foundation, that all 3 entities need to have a seat at the table and be a member of the board of the Animal Foundation. If it's our tax money that is going to support the Animal Foundation, we ought to have a say in the way it's spent. I think when the contract is up, and I think it's 2025, there ought to be some changes made, but certainly with the right and adequate amount of resources, we can actually do something to take care of these 4-legged friends. My family, we're all animal lovers, and we all have rescue pets, dogs, cats. I've got a hamster. I mean, we need to take care of these pets. It's a tragedy what's happening to them.
All right, Mrs. Seaman, 1 minute for your answer as well. Do you have faith in that operation moving forward, and what changes are needed?
The only thing I have faith in is that we have an RFP going out mid-summer to get a new partner. The Animal Foundation has been a failure for for decades, but no one wanted to deal with it. They kicked it down the road. It took me 2 years and a lot of help from the media, who was constantly reporting about it, people that were working inside the Animal Foundation, and the advocates, to finally come to a point where we could get an audit. And now we found out of all the numerous problems over the decades, and we are now going to we are going to keep them whole till the contract's up, but all the jurisdictions came together we are going to buy back the shelter, and we are going to get a new partner that cares, that truly cares about animals.
All right, a 30-second follow-up for you, Mrs. Seaman. Who would you want to buy that contract? Who would be your partner?
Well, I want someone who doesn't put politics over our animals. I want someone who will care for our animals and run an operation. The problem with the Animal Foundation is they keep hiring people who don't know how to run a shelter. But I think it's really important to look at, that when it happens. But the most important thing is that we had no oversight for decades. Now with the new contracts, I will be a part of that, and we will have oversight.
All right, but I just want to clarify, you don't have a specific partner in mind?
Well, there are people that have shown interest, but I think it needs to go through the process.
All right, thank you. John?
All right, Josh, thank you. Let's go to another topic. For years, Las Vegas has been involved in a legal battle over developing the Badlands golf course. After the city bought the land and made zoning changes, the developer sued. So far, the city's been ordered to pay about $250 million. Mrs. Berkeley, you have 1 minute to respond to this question. You've criticized the city for not settling those lawsuits. Can you explain why you've taken that position?
Yes, there have been 4 lawsuits, all adjudicated against the city. It is the essence of insanity, the very definition of insanity, that you keep doing the same thing expecting a different result. That property was zoned for residential. It was approved by the Planning Commission, and according to the last Supreme Court decision, which found that the city owes another $48 million plus attorney's fees to the developer, it is time to sit down and negotiate in good faith with people that will protect the interests of the taxpayers of the city of Las Vegas before we end up owing this developer even more money. And we need to ensure that we make this developer whole. In the decision, and I'm an attorney, I have never read a Supreme Court decision that said the reason this happened was because of politics. It had nothing to do with the merits of the case.
All right, Mrs. Berkeley, thank you. Mrs. Seaman, you have 1 minute to respond. You now support settling the case, but until February 2022, you asked for more money to be spent. Can you explain why you changed your position?
Actually, it was 2021 when I stopped funding. I voted last in 2021. And when I got elected, I was told that we needed to for the taxpayers. They were already in litigation. When I got elected, actually before I got elected, I was interviewed by Victor Jakes, because it was already in the courts, from the Review Journal. And I said, if we don't settle this, we're going to end up writing a big check. So it was up through 2021 that they told me that they were going to try to settle this, but we had to keep paying the outside attorneys. After much research, I stopped, and every single vote on the consent, I made a statement saying I refuse to fund outside attorneys. We have 14 city attorneys, and these outside attorneys do not have anything to gain to continue this lawsuit. And I also had a brokered deal a couple years ago that was all over the press, where I went to meet with the developer. Mayor Goodman gave me her blessing, and as you know, it didn't come through.
A quick point of clarification, Mrs. Seaman, 15 seconds to respond. Just the reason you changed your position, is the reason you had voted initially for continuing the settlement discussions was the illegal payments because you expected a settlement?
Yes.
Okay.
Not because you wanted to keep fighting. That was what I told them. I would agree for the outside attorney fees as long as you went into settlement. And when I saw that that wasn't happening, I made a public statement at every single council meeting, and on the consent, that was the only item I did not vote for.
Mrs. Seaman, thank you. Mr. Creer, you have voted to keep litigating this on the City Council. You have 1 minute to respond. Why should taxpayers keep paying for this legal battle?
Well, I think it's important to get the facts out. One, this is just not a Badlands issue, a Queensbridge issue. This is a McNeil Estates issue. This is a Sky Canyon issue, a Huntridge issue. This is a Spanish Oaks issue. Imagine if a developer came to you in your neighborhood where you live and said, this is what I want to do. And if you don't agree with it, then I'm going to do it anyways. You can go kick rocks. So imagine having the developer say, I want to put a strip club next to a house of worship, or a house of worship, or a tavern next to your home. No one is fighting on behalf of the neighbors, and I am fighting on behalf of the neighbors. Because if you know that a developer can come in and just sue their way to get what they want, every developer would do that. 25 cities and counties around the state signed on to our amicus brief, which means they know that if developers come in, they don't get their way, then they're just going to sue us. Land use is not guaranteed. We, every single day, we deal with developers that come in and they work with projects, they work with the neighborhood to find cohesion. And we do that every single day. Sometimes they get what they want and sometimes they don't. That's called City Hall and that's called government. The good thing is that I'm fighting for the neighbors.
15 seconds to clarify, Mr. Sear. Are you, though, concerned about the price tag, the chance of the city charter being at stake here? Is it worth the fight?
Well, of course I'm concerned, but I think it's a fight worth fighting. Number one, we are not going to go bankrupt. We just approved our budget. It is a leveled budget, is zeroed out. We aren't going to have any issues. I think that if you look at the developers, got 4 parcels, 17 acres. He was granted. He let his entitlements expire. The 65 acres he never applied for, but he's saying it was a taking. How can you apply for something and say it's a taking if you never applied for something?
Thank you very much, Mr. Creer. I do have a follow-up for everyone moving forward real quick here. Ms. Berkeley, 30 seconds. What should happen with the Badlands property?
Look, what Cedric has just said is so wrong and so outrageous. There are 5 court decisions that refute every single thing that he has just said. The land was zoned for residential. It was approved by the Planning Commission. This was not a developer coming in and saying, I'm going to build and you can't stop me. And Victoria, with all due respect, has won her election in order to get this wrapped up. It's been 5 years. She hasn't been able to do it yet.
Since she mentioned my name, one,
15 seconds,
the property was on Parks, Recreation, Open Space. Obviously, she doesn't know planning.
No, it is
like
not. And according to the Supreme Court, you are misrepresenting the facts, Mr.
That doesn't mean that you
Creer.
can go and you can just build whatever you want to build. You just can't come in and do that. You need a general plan amendment, you need a major modification, you need a setbacks, you need all these things that have to happen. They all have to get approved by Planning Commission. I was not on City Council when that vote took place. I was on the Planning Commission. So all those things have to happen. We do that every single day. And we work with developers. And I think it's important to understand that. If we don't fight for the neighbors, then who is going to fight for the neighbors? I'm fighting for the neighbors.
I'm
fighting for the neighbors. I'm fighting for you.
You're not fighting for me.
I am fighting for the neighbors, and the neighbors appreciate someone standing up for them at City Hall.
You're not standing up for anybody but yourself.
You aren't on City Hall. Obviously, you don't know what.
Mr. Creer,
you have no idea what goes on every day at City Hall.
I've read the court decisions, and they refute everything you said.
Both of you, please, excuse me. Mrs. Seaman, I'd like to ask you a follow-up question. The question I asked Ms. Berkeley as well. What should happen with the Badlands property moving forward?
Well, when I got elected, 4 of the members who were either on Planning Commission or on City Council that got us into Badlands were there, and you need 4 votes. So I spent 5 years trying to settle it, even brokering a deal as long as 2 years ago, and never heard from my constituent, Ms. Berkeley, to come and help, although she thinks that I could have done this alone with 4 people. If you wanted to help as a neighbor, you could have come and called me and helped to settle it.
I don't need to do your job, Victoria. It was your responsibility, and you didn't do it.
Mrs. Berkeley, we'd like to move on, if possible, to another topic. Denise.
Well, it sounds like development is a passion project for all of our candidates tonight. Let's talk about a different part of town. Cashman Center. It sits largely unused. Previous efforts to redevelop the property just simply have not panned out. Now the city is working with a developer to turn what is a 50-acre site into a medical campus, possibly a children's hospital. So, Mrs. Seaman, you'll answer this one first. You have 1 minute. What do you think is really the best way for the city to use Cashman Center successfully?
Well, right now we're in an ENA and somebody is trying to build a hospital. I'm hoping for a children's hospital because I've been advocating it for 5 years. My daughter was born with a severe laryngeal web, and luckily at the time, which was 30 years ago, I was in Los Angeles, and so there was a children's hospital in Los Angeles, a very good one. And there are people that come to my office monthly and talk about their children having to go out of state for medical care. And so I am working with different people other than that to try to get a children's hospital here. It doesn't matter to me if it's in the city. It needs to be in southern Nevada because we desperately need it.
Mr. Creer, 1 minute to answer here. I know you're very familiar with this part of the valley. What do you think is the best way to use Cashman Center and to make it successful?
Thank you, Denise. Yes, so Cashman is in my ward. I've been working with developers since the first day I walked in office to try to get a viable project there. I have a number of developers who want to do something in Cashman Field. We are in an ENA with a developer. We really believe that something is going to happen with this, building out a medical district, not just with the hospital, but building out the ancillary services. You know, when I was on the Board of Regents, I brought in UNLV School of Medicine. We're building out our health district down off of Shadow Lane. We're going to continue that down with the Ruvo Institute, also in my ward, and then coming down to Cashman Field. So yeah, I think it's important that we continue to find ways to incentivize developers to come in and help them develop that property. It is a large parcel of property. It has the baseball field. We brought a USL team down there working with Jose Batista to build the USL team. Nobody knows this. We had Usher inside Cashman, who worked on all of his Super Bowl show, was down at Cashman. So we are utilizing it. We just have to find the right project and the right partner to come in and do something with it. I'm really excited.
Thanks for the tea. Mrs. Berkeley, 1 minute here to answer. What do you think is really the best way to use Cashman Center and make it successful?
My vision for Cashman Center is to build a medical complex, a hospital, a children's hospital, which I think is sorely needed. We've reached a level of maturity in this community that we're ready for this. I also had a son with spina bifida. He was born with it. We couldn't have an operation here. We had to go to Los Angeles because there was simply nobody here in order to perform that. Wouldn't it have been so much easier for all of us, and I'm sure other families as well, to be home with their loved ones while their child is getting taken care of? In addition to that, you do create an entire medical complex. There's doctors' offices and pharmacies and research labs. We could develop that entire area and make it the envy of the rest of the country. That's my vision for Cashman.
Sounds like one thing that you all agree on.
Well, the good thing is we're doing that, so.
It's in motion.
Yes.
So the Arts District and now Fremont East have seen a lot of new redevelopment recently, but it has come at the expense of some small businesses and residents that have just been there for years. Rent on some of those streets has exploded. People are being squeezed out. So, Mr. Creer, you'll go first on this one. Again, 1 minute to answer. How do you balance that redevelopment without sacrificing the very things that attract people to those neighborhoods in the first place?
You know, I love downtown. My first office when I started my business was downtown, when it was not popular to be downtown. From a person that's born and raised in this community, I'll be the first Vegas-born mayor in the history of our city. I think it's awesome with what's taking place. I share downtown with Councilwoman Diaz. We work all the time to bring businesses into the downtown corridor. You know, Chef James Trees is doing a great job, and so many other people that are bringing such entertainment, such liveliness into the downtown corridor. We're bringing more infrastructure. We're bringing more rooftops in the downtown corridor, and we also work with businesses. You know, we have a number of grants that we offer with our Economic Urban Development Department, our EUD department, that help businesses, one, get open, help them with infrastructure that's taking place, and provide them with other incentives to come into the downtown corridor. And it's been working. You know, it used to be, when I was young, you could drive down Fremont Street. I bought my wedding ring from my wife right on Fremont Street. I drove right up, and I got out, and I bought a wedding ring. You know, that hasn't happened with the canopy that's there. It was beautiful. We get 22 million visitors that come into downtown Las Vegas every single year. So we have to balance that between tourism, between business, between industry coming in.
All right, Mr. Creer. Mrs. Berkeley, again, 1 minute to answer. As mayor, how would you pursue development in these historic areas without sacrificing what is so attractive to some people?
When I was a kid, if you could not walk downtown after dark. So what is happening now is so extraordinary and so incredible. The young developers that are reimagining downtown Las Vegas are changing Las Vegas forever. I'm not sure there were that many people that loved the dilapidated areas in downtown Las Vegas, but I'll tell you what, they are surely enjoying them now. The restaurants, the boutiques. I walk around downtown Las Vegas. It is the most exciting adventure, and I'm thrilled to see it. It's going to retain the original feel of downtown Las Vegas, but it's going to be new and improved and so much better. This is good for our city. It's good for our tax base. It's good for the community and people that call Las Vegas home, and it's just the beginning. Watch out and see what Las Vegas is going to be able to do.
Mrs. Seaman, you'll wrap up this question for us tonight. You have 1 minute. If elected as mayor, how do you balance that redevelopment without squeezing people out at the same time?
Well, that's why we have our redevelopment agency department, and we're always willing to help those businesses that need to improve. They need new signs because there are newer businesses coming in, and we have plenty of grants for that. And also, I don't know if everyone's seen that new commercial, Down for Anything or Downtown. We are truly promoting it, and I have to give a big shout out to our PR, David Riggleman, because he always comes up with these fabulous ideas. But we do a lot at the city. We have our own channel. We do Access City Council. We also have other programs with local businesses. And in my own ward, I do a Saturday, Business Saturday. As mayor, I'm going to try to expand that and make sure that we're doing that all across all wards.
All right, thank you so much. Let's move on to a next topic with Joshua.
All right, the Valley has seen a lot of innovation in mass transit, from Tesla tunnels to self-driving cars, but the average commute time continues to grow as the population increases. Mrs. Berkeley, you first, and you have 1 minute to answer. What type of mass transit options do you think the city needs to encourage and adopt?
I think what we're doing now is a very good start, but you're absolutely right. We need to have better local transportation. When I was in Congress, I sat on the Transportation Committee, and we brought in millions and millions of dollars for smart signs, to expand 95, to create 215, all very necessary for moving people around the valley. But it's important for us to have mass transit. We need to improve our bus system. I'm not sure whether light rail is an option for the city of Las Vegas, but it's certainly worth exploring. The loop and what's happening from the convention center to other areas is remarkable, and it's headed downtown. How spectacular is that? Because we need it, and as this community continues to grow, we're going to need it even more.
All right, Mr. Seaman, you also have 1 minute. What type of mass transit options do you think the city needs to encourage and adopt?
Well, I'm not sure we can get people out of cars to a light rail. People don't even take the bus. But what I can tell you is I'm very excited about the Boring Company's tunnels. And I have talked to them over and over again and said, you've got to go through the whole valley. I think it would be a game changer. And, you know, we're expanding roads constantly, and that's why everybody complains about the cones. We're growing exponentially. So as fast as we're growing, we're expanding those roads and improving the roads. But I do really love the Boring Company being in here, but I don't know how fast they can expand to the rest of the valley, but that would just be a game changer.
All right, Mr. Creer, your turn, 1 minute as well. What type of mass transit options do you think the city needs to encourage and adopt?
Yep. So I was just at the Department of Transportation in D.C. not too long ago, and they were so amazed at all the work that the city of Las Vegas has been doing to address this particular issue. I've been working with the Regional Transportation Commission, RTC, to get where we are being forward-thinking when it comes to transportation. Many times transportation is the last thing as we go out and develop, but we need to be forward-thinking with that. We have autonomous vehicles that we have going in downtown Las Vegas, which has been working very, very well. We look to expand that into Symphony Park, where we are, as well as to how do we get people from neighborhoods down to the needed services that they need in the downtown corridor. As Councilwoman Seaman said, we've been working with the Boring Company. They just signed a franchise agreement with us to come into the downtown corridor, which is going to change that. Also in the Symphony Park, that will help get people off the street. Hopefully at one point it will go out to Summerlin and go out to other parts of the community, because we do need to find different ways to get people from point A to point B. And I'm all for it, and we're working diligently to make that happen.
Thank you all. John?
All right, Joshua, thank you. And Mr. Creer, thank you very much. We're going to take a quick break here on this mayoral debate. Next, personalized questions for each of the candidates. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Las Vegas mayoral primary debate. For this next section of the debate, each candidate gets an individual question. Only they will answer. Still 1 minute to answer these questions. Joshua.
All right, Mr. Creer, you opposed a marijuana dispensary opening in your ward back in September of 2020, saying at the time it was too close to homes and churches. And there was controversy with that dispensary, and 2 council members, including Mrs. Seaman here, saying you have a conflict of interest and should recuse yourself since your brother sat on the board of another dispensary, suing the state at the time. Can you please explain your vote and your reason for not recusing yourself? You have 1 minute.
So that's interesting you brought that up, for the fact that there was no conflict whatsoever. Our legal counsel said there was no conflict. My brother had no clue what was going on. He is on the board, some friends of mine own a dispensary, but he's on the board of a number of things, and so there was no conflict whatsoever. So let's make that very, very clear. The dispensary was in conflict with the neighborhood. It was in conflict with the neighbors. The neighbors came out in full force and said that it would not be harmonious to the development, and I stood with the neighbors and fought for the neighbors, and that's simple as that. Once again, standing up for the neighbors.
Thank you, Mr. Creer.
All right, Councilwoman Seaman, you're currently involved in a lawsuit against the city over an incident with former Councilwoman Michelle Fiore at City Hall. Also, recently, fellow council members passed a resolution on how to propose laws at City Hall. It was somewhat sparked by some of your actions at council. You have 1 minute to answer this question. What does all this say about your demeanor if you're elected as mayor?
Well, it says that I don't kick the can down the road, and I completely believe in transparency and accountability. And we've seen City Hall take an incident of an assault and destroy the tape and not change policy. I recently offered to drop that lawsuit with 2 small policy changes, which they declined. So it tells me that they put politics over people, because it's taxpayers, it's the safety of all city employees or elected officials. Those 2 small policy changes would get an incident investigated immediately, not a year later, and it would make sure that everyone is safe.
Okay. Thank you very much. Denise.
Mrs. Berkeley, you certainly have plenty of experience in public office, but it really has been more than a decade since you served in Congress, and some people might criticize you of being more of the same of the Goodmans. It's going to be the same old thing. Can you, if elected, what kind of fresh ideas would you bring to the office that may not be parallel to what the Goodmans have done in the past?
Over the last 25 years that the Goodmans have served the people of the city of Las Vegas, the city of Las Vegas has been wildly successful. It's not with my experience and expertise and maturity, we could move the city of Las Vegas to the next level. I can assure you I will not be in a physical altercation with another person that sits on the city council. I can assure you I won't be suing the city that I wish to represent. I think that a continuation of the Goodmans' reign and improve upon it and go to the next level, the next 10 years in the city of Las Vegas are going to be explosive. We're getting the A's, not in the city, but we're going to get an NBA team. There are soccer teams that want to come in. There's going to be jobs. There's going to be more tourism. We are on the precipice of an extraordinary expansion. You need a steady hand and someone with the knowledge and background that I have in order to deliver for the people that call Las Vegas home.
So, Mrs. Berkeley, in the question, though, we're asking for a fresh idea, something that Shelley Berkeley wants to bring to the mayor's office. What is that? And then, Victoria, I'm going to let you respond.
we haven't scratched the surface on technology. We're the entertainment capital of the world, the soon to be the sports capital of the world, the gaming capital of the world. How about the technology capital of the world? That would be spectacular. How about the arts capital? I know I received an award from the Nevada School of the Arts. They want to build a Lincoln Center downtown. How remarkable would that be, not only for our tourists, but for our fellow citizens? There's a lot to do, and a lot that I am more than capable of doing on day one.
Mrs. Seaman, you were singled out though in those remarks. Let me give you 30 seconds to respond to that.
Okay, thank you. So you may not be in a physical altercation because I wasn't, but you may be assaulted if those policy changes aren't changed like I was.
Well, you sit on the city council. Why don't you change the policy? Oh, wait, you need 4 votes.
Ladies, thank you. All right, let's get back now to questions for the whole panel tonight. The City of Las Vegas recently received grants for improvements to some of its parks. That included the East Las Vegas Family Park, Gary Reese Freedom Park, and All-American Park. However, Huntridge Circle Park has had a lot of problems. It's still closed. There are complaints that Lorenzi Park is dirty, it's neglected. So let's start here with Mr. Creer with 1 minute to respond. If elected, what would you do to make these inner city parks clean and safe for people to enjoy?
Well, look, Lorenzi's in my ward. I grew up right down the street. I live in the house that I grew up in. I used to walk to Lorenzi when I was a kid. My brother and I would walk up to Lorenzi and have spend time there. We do have challenges with the Ninth Circuit Court in terms of homelessness. Parks are open space. That means they're public spaces, and people have an opportunity to come into those parks. What I've done with the parks in my neighborhood, inner city parks, we created the Becker Technical Recreation Park, the city's first technical recreation park in the entire city. I think parks are going to be viewed that way moving forward. Before, we had a lot of high crime in that area. We had a lot of petty crime. Kids were getting into graffiti, busting windows. Crime is down in that area 95% since we built this technical recreation park. And so we're going to do innovative things like that. There's a 3D printers in there. There is a game room in there, podcasting station. So we have to find ways to be innovative and to be forward thinking when we come to all of our parks. And we've done that, and we're going to continue to do it. We do have a number of parks that are on the SNPLA list, and then we have some money from our RTC money that we invest back into our parks as well.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Berkeley, you do have 1 minute here to respond. If elected, what would you do to make these inner city parks clean and safe?
I love parks, and when I was a kid growing up in Las Vegas, the fact that you could go to a park and play, and I'm not sure about the technology park, I think that's wonderful, but as a kid, I wanted a jungle gym and swings to play on. We should be working, and I think the city is doing everything they can to ensure that our parks are safe and that our parks are clean. And it's just a matter of ensuring that all of our children get to go to the parks, that they can be supervised, that they can be safe, and they can come home. And that's the role of the city in ensuring that our parks are well utilized and used for the purpose that they were created for.
Mrs. Seaman, 1 minute here to answer. If elected, what would you do to make these parks clean and safe?
As mayor, I would work with our parks and the Economic Development Department to revitalize these areas. There are certain wards that have been left behind in this city, and they absolutely need to be worked on. I am the Ward 2 councilwoman. I can't step into somebody's ward unless I get calls. But as mayor, you can count that I'm going to make sure that all these areas get the attention that they haven't had for a long time.
All right, thank you. Let's move on now to John.
All right, Denise, thank you. Last November, the City Council approved an order-out corridor around Fremont Street downtown. A judge can order people who've been convicted of crimes downtown to stay out of the area. The law is currently being challenged in court. First, to Mrs. Berkeley, 1 minute to respond. Would you support this kind of order-out legislation elsewhere around the city?
Would you explain what you're asking me exactly?
We're talking about the order-out corridor
Yes.
in downtown. We're asking if you would approve this, we support this kind of legislation in downtown Summerlin, in other parts of Las Vegas.
Yes, I would.
You care to explain why? You
Yes,
believe it's
I
working?
I beg your pardon?
Do you believe it is working?
I do believe it is working. I think it is important to keep all of the public areas safe, and if it is successful where it's currently, then it can be expanded. So I would be in favor of that.
Mrs. Seaman,
if in fact it meets constitutional muster. And when I was vice president of the Sands Hotel, we had an issue with the sidewalks and using the sidewalks in order to, approach and accost our tourists. If that cannot be in a tourist area. It's wrong, and we need to do everything we can to keep our tourists safe and our community safe.
Mrs. Seaman, you also have 1 minute to respond. Would you support this kind of legislation to order out corridor elsewhere in the city?
Well, we supported it where it was needed. We haven't seen the need of it in any part of city limits, but I absolutely voted for it because it was needed, and we need to keep our tourists and we need to keep people safe. And when you're a repeat criminal and you can get reduced time by agreeing to order out, then I think it's a good thing. But absolutely would support it where needed. I don't see it needed anywhere right now.
Mr. Creer, thank you, Mrs. Seaman. Mr. Creer, you have 1 minute to respond as well. Would you support this legislation elsewhere around the city, acknowledging it is being challenged in court?
Well, look, I wanted to expand it already into the downtown corridor, and we did not get that approved. We're going to look at this as a test and see how it goes, and then look to expand it. We worked with Sheriff McMahill, worked with Downtown Area Command, which is in my ward as well, to get this. We modeled it off of what the county has as well. And keep in mind, this is something that's a tool for judges to use. Okay, the judge has the ability to say you cannot go back into that area. It's not the city who says that, but we do have legislation, ordinances that say that. But a judge can come in and say, you've been there, you keep going back, you keep, causing problems, you keep doing, making the area less safe. I am going to say that you cannot go back into that area. It's sort of like a trespass, and I think that's vitally needed. It has been working, and I think we'll expand it.
We all agree on that.
All right, now we're going to talk about another issue a lot of people in this area care about: education. The city of Las Vegas started a charter school about 2 years ago called Strong Start Academy. State data shows charter school enrollment is going up, especially among the local Hispanic population. Mrs. Seaman, you will have 1 minute to answer. You're going first. Do you think the city should create more charter schools?
Well, what I do know is that I voted for this, and I am so proud of the work that we've done with this charter school. It's in an underserved area, and it is thriving. And the state legislature recently, with AB 400, gave us the ability to support other charter schools. And as mayor, I will continue to support that. We are basically 50th in education, and we have to start thinking outside the box. So yes, I think charter schools are wonderful, and whatever we can do, I will continue to do.
Mr. Creer, you also have 1 minute. The same question: do you think the city should create more charter schools?
I don't think that the city should create more charter schools. I love what the city has done, and one of the key elements of Carolyn Goodman's administration is we established the Youth Development and Social Innovation Department, YDSI, which provides wraparound services for schools. We adopt schools. We have 13 schools. We call reinvent schools. Many of them are in my ward. We provide them with everything from school supplies to summer jobs to school trips. We provide them SAT, ACT training. And so those are the things that I think the city can expand, and we will expand on, because it's important that we pick up where the school district leaves off. Charter schools are serving its purpose. I think there are agencies that do that, and some of them are doing it well, and some of them are not doing it very well, right? In my ward, we've had a number of charter schools that have underperformed. And so I don't think it's a silver bullet to end the disparity that's taking place in the Clark County School District, but I think it's one tool that's taking place. But I think the CCSD system and the charter school system should expand that, and not the city of Las Vegas.
All right, Mrs. Berkeley, 1 minute as well to answer. Do you think the city should create more charter schools?
I like the idea that the city created the charter school, and it is doing very well, helping to educate a disadvantaged population. However, I have a school named after me. I spend a lot of time at Berkeley Elementary School. I served on the Board of Regents for 8 years, and of course I just completed a stint of 9.5 years as CEO and Senior Provost of Touro University. So I have a very deep deep education background. I think we need to do everything we can to empower our students so they can succeed in school. I'm a product of the Clark County School District, and the education I received was wonderful for my life. It's obsolete for the life that my grandchildren are leading. Consequently, we do everything to support education and try to do whatever we can to make our children in the city of Las Vegas competitive and successful.
Thank you. A 30-second follow-up for all of you. I'm going to start with Mrs. Seaman first. Do you think the Clark County School District should be broken up? 30 seconds.
100%. When I was in the 2015 legislative session, I co-sponsored a bill to break up the school district. It passed, but went into interim committee and ended up completely different. And this is what happens sometimes in the state legislature. And I can tell you this, what the needs of Laughlin, the needs of Mesquite are not the same as the needs in Summerlin or Ward 5. So I would absolutely like to see it broken up.
Mr. Creer, 30 seconds as well. Do you believe the Clark County School District should be broken up?
So the challenge is that's more of a catchphrase. We need to just break up the Clark County School District. There's never been a comprehensive strategic initiative plan that talks about what that looks like. How do you break up the school district? How do you not create a divide between schools that get and schools like mine in my ward that are have-not schools? So I would be interested in very understanding the strategic initiative, busing, free lunch, how do kids get food for them to go home. There are a lot of factors that go into it. So I'm not opposed, but I just don't understand how that would work yet. And I would love for someone to sit down and be a part of the conversation to see how that works strategically. What does that look like?
Thank you. Mrs. Berkeley, 30 seconds as well. Do you think the Clark County School District should be broken up?
Not necessarily. I agree with Cedric. We don't have a plan. Those people that were pushing a breakup of the school district, how is it going to work? How is it going to function? How is it going to improve educational outcomes for our children? And why don't we do something before we do this, something so draconian? We fund our education system 49th in the United States. How about we do something wild? Let's fund it at 40th and see if we see some success. But right now, just breaking it up and hoping for the best is not adequate for my grandchildren. And it's not adequate for anybody else's.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, Denise.
All right, so as our debate comes to a close, we have a little bit of extra time, so we're now going to give each of our candidates now 1 minute for their final thoughts to wrap up what you thought about and what you'd like to tell prospective viewers. So we'll begin tonight with Mr. Creer. Again, 1 minute for your closing.
Thank you, Denise. I am Cedric Creer. I'm running to be the next mayor for the city of Las Vegas. I'm looking to make history with your help as the first Vegas-born mayor in the history of our great city. I've seen the city grow. I'm a product of this community. I've worked in our #1 industry in our city and our state in gaming and hospitality. I've done everything from dealing cards on blackjack, working in slots, working in racing sportsbook. I've turned over guest rooms. I've parked cars. Like many of you, I've clocked in and clocked out. So I understand our industry. I've been blessed to live in the house that I live in. My parents came out in the mid-60s. My father was the second black doctor in all of Nevada. So we have been a part of service in this community since the day I was born. No one would be a better global ambassador than me, and no one loves this city more than me, and nobody has more experience than me to lead this charge. 12 years on Nevada System Higher Education Board of Regents, 2 years in the Las Vegas Planning Commission, and then 6.5 years when I take office as mayor. I need and want your support. I hope you will come out and vote for us. Don't forget, early voting starts this Saturday. June 11th is the primary. Thank you.
Mr. Creer, thank you so much. Now let's go on to Mrs. Seaman. Again, 1 minute for your closing remarks on the debate tonight.
I've been on the council now for 5 years. Public safety has been my #1 issue. The largest police association in the state of Nevada has endorsed me for the work that I've done. I will make sure to continue to do what I have done and working with police shoulder to shoulder to make sure that we keep the tourists safe, our citizens safe, and I have a proven record in the city council and in the state legislature of getting things done. In Ward 2, in the 5 years I've been there, we've had nearly 4,000 issues that we track and resolve. We have other wards that call us to help them with their issues. So I'm asking people for their vote, and I promise them that they will get a mayor that they deserve. You only need to look to our neighboring cities and the liberal policies policies that are ruining them. And so I promise to be your law and order mayor.
That's your time. So now for our last closing statement from Mrs. Berkeley. Again, 1 minute.
Thank you. I am the granddaughter of immigrants that came to this country in order to escape the Holocaust. In my view, every day since they arrived at Ellis Island has been a gift to us. I believe in public service. It is my way of giving back to this country and to my community for not only taking my grandparents in so they could survive, but that my family can thrive. So I've dedicated my life to public service. People in the community know me well. I served in the Assembly. I served on the Board of Regents. I was a 7-term Congresswoman, coming home every single weekend over the 14 years, so I never lost touch with my constituents. In addition to that, CEO of Touro University Medical School, Vice President of Government and Legal Affairs at the Old Sands Hotel, and finally, in-house counsel for Southwest Gas Corporation. I am ready on day one to represent the people of the tremendously fabulous city of Las Vegas. I ask for your vote.
So this concludes our debate, and you should have your ballots in the mail by now for our viewers at home. As a reminder, early voting does start on Saturday. You can vote at any voting location. If you haven't registered to vote yet, it's not too late. We have information on how to do that on our website at 8newsnow.com. On behalf of all of us, Joshua Piguero and John Langler, thank you so much for joining us tonight for this very engaging debate. And thank you to our candidates.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.